Yesterday I did my 10 favorite voice lines and intro dialogues for Leonardo, and today I'm going to be doing the same thing but for Donatello because, well, that's what you guys voted for. The remaining characters are Raphael and Michelangelo. If you'd like to see either of them in the next voice line interaction top 10 thing, then leave a hashtag in the comments with that character's name. Make sure you spell it correctly or else your vote will not count. Let's jump straight into this list with an interaction in the mirror match, Donatello versus Donatello.
Two Donnies enter, only one leaves. That is way dark for us, dude. Dark for you, maybe.
I like this interaction so much because it shows you what an actual multiverse of TMNT would look like. We see this across DC's multiverse all the time, characters that are slightly different than the original, or even drastically different than the original. Look at the two, granted one of them's Bruce Wayne and the other one is, how am I forgetting Thomas Wayne? I was about to forget Bruce Wayne's dad's name there, but I remembered it. Look at the difference between Thomas Wayne and Bruce Wayne. Now, again, they are actually different characters, but there are plenty of more examples. Look at the different versions of The Flash. Look at the different versions of other characters. Even if it's just a subtle change, there is a change throughout the multiverse. So if these two versions of Donatello were going to run into each other from different multiverses, I could see this interaction totally happening, one of them being significantly darker than the other one. If you don't get what I'm saying, go back and watch that same clip that I just played with this paradigm in mind. Pretend that one of them's from another universe and there's an actual functioning multiverse and one of them is just slightly darker than the other. Darker meaning that maybe he went through some more stuff, maybe Splinter died or something, and he's an incredibly dark person now. Moving on to this next interaction with the two science guys. Well, not the two science guys, there's multiple science guys on the roster, but these two in particular are definitely, specifically quite scientific, and that is Adam and Donatello.
And what's the goal of today's experiment?
Do I shrink, or does the multiverse expand?
Science rules.
I like this so much because it's actually so true. Science looks at lots of questions like this. They don't just assume a lot of things. They have to prove it so that it's, provable. So when he poses the question, do I shrink or does the multiverse expand, to Donatello, that's a genuinely interesting question to Donatello, even though we already know the answer. We know that he shrinks. Adam knows that he shrinks. Well, actually, maybe this version doesn't, but I would imagine Ray Palmer knows for a fact that he is shrinking, because he's the one who designed the device. But Donatello doesn't assume the answer here. He has to think about it, and he's going to try to figure it out during this fight. I think that's really cool, because again, that's how science works in real life. There's a lot of what might seem like obvious questions. Even something today like gravity might seem really obvious to us. But back in the day, it wasn't. We had to ask these very specific questions. And that's how science has evolved, and I think that's really cool. Going in a completely different direction with this next one, an interaction with Hellboy.
Can't say I've met a Ninja Turtle.
Hope you're not turtle-phobic, Hellboy.
Nah, my problem's with frogs.
When I first heard Donatello's part of this interaction, I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of funny. And then I heard Hellboy's, and I'm like, wait a minute, what does Hellboy get against frogs? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm happy that he doesn't hate turtles, but why is he so against the frog species? And then I had to do some research, and it turns out that in fact, one of Hellboy's enemies, or I suppose you would say monsters, is in fact a thing literally just called frog monster. Frog monsters. Apparently there's multiple of these things. Based on this image that I'm showing, I now want to read Hellboy comics, and that's something I've never wanted to do before until now. So that's the reason this one makes it onto the list. Plus it was just funny even if you didn't get the reference. This next interaction isn't necessarily one that is as particularly exciting as the ones we've seen so far, right? We've seen very specific interactions and references.
You need more training.
Dude, I won't even need gadgets.
Come give it a try.
I just like this one because it's a different side of Donatello we don't really see from the other interactions. He says this with other characters. It's not the only one he says it with. It shows a little bit of arrogance from Donatello, a little bit of cockiness, a little bit of confidence in Donatello, which I wouldn't have assumed Donatello isn't confident, but he doesn't really express that in any of his other voice lines. So I like this one just because it does show that side of him off. Next up is an interaction with Starfire.
Your power is off the charts.
On this, we could not agree more.
Try not to burn me, Starfire.
I think the reason I like this interaction so much is if you remember in yesterday's video, I went over an interaction with Leonardo and how Starfire seems to reach out to Leonardo and offer an invitation to the Titans. And when I hear this interaction, I imagine this to be a legitimate interaction that they would have if they were like walking into like a training session or a tryout session for the Titans. I thought it was cute. Maybe I'm just looking way too deep into this and nobody else sees it the way that I do, but I thought it was cute. This next one isn't necessarily a cute interaction, but regardless, I think it's pretty cool, and it is with Black Manta.
You're using science to hurt people.
I use science to kill people.
I can't let that stand.
I like this because it gives Donatello a meaning to fight Black Manta. When we look at all the other interactions, we don't really get given any reason these characters are fighting. We kind of have to make up the reason in our head, which is fine. I mean, that's to be expected when we're playing a fighting game, especially one with a roster this size. But Donatello has a specific reason in this interaction, you know? Donatello feels very passionately about science and how science should be used. So when Black Manta is using science to create weapons and his suit to literally kill people, obviously that rubs Donatello the wrong way, and he can't have other people seeing science in that light. So obviously he's got a vendetta against Black Manta in this particular context. And yeah, I just think it's pretty cool. Next interaction is with the God of Thunder.
I knew transdimensional travel was possible.
You are learned, but are you a champion?
Master Splinter seems to think so.
Obviously, the reason this one makes it onto the list is because of the reference to Splinter. I would have loved to have seen Splinter show up in the game somehow, even if it was just at the end of the super animation. I think that would have been super cool. The closest thing we have to Splinter right now is in between rounds, one of the turtles might bow to a passing rat, but that's not Splinter, unless he got like demutated or something. But as far as we're aware, that is not, in fact, Splinter. Well, now that they have this deal, perhaps maybe Splinter could show up in a future game, but still, a pretty nice shout out to the character who couldn't quite make it this time around. This next interaction is with Wonder Woman.
A goddess of war against a ninja turtle?
This should be interesting.
If you find losing interesting.
Again, I threw this one in here because it shows a different side of Donatello, that cocky, arrogant side, thinking that he's able to just beat Wonder Woman. And I don't know, perhaps maybe he could. It would be a tall order, to say the least. Wonder Woman being an incredibly powerful character in the DC world, but yet he's just willing to walk into the fight like, yeah, man, I got this, and being so arrogant as to, well, pretty much boldly say that she has no chance. I mean, he straight up said, if you enjoy losing, that's just rude. Next interaction also with Wonder Woman. You know, funnily enough, Wonder Woman doesn't show up on this series very much. I don't know why that is.
My sword splits atoms.
I so need to know how that works.
The gods must be crazy.
This interaction can be done with multiple different characters. Donatello says, oh, I so need to know how that works. He even says that to Adam. I liked it with Wonder Woman because I don't think Wonder Woman really knows either. I feel like Donatello kind of caught her off guard when he said that. I think it's a pretty cool line though, and it shows a little bit into Donatello's personality, always seeking the answer to questions. Always asking questions, because that's what he's all about. He's always looking to learn.
Are you a worthy combatant?
Dude, I am done with Triceraton tournaments.
You misunderstand my intentions.
The final interaction is with another guest character, and that's Sub-Zero. So at first, I actually didn't get this reference at all. I actually had to do a little bit of research on this because I'm not a TMNT fan, although, you know, after playing TMNT and being impressed with their gameplay and so many of their animations and the things that they say in-game, I have been a little bit curious and I've thought about watching some of the old animated stuff, but I actually haven't started doing that yet because I'm in the middle of another series right now. So for the people who are like me and uninitiated, Triceratons are basically another race they're not mutants because they're aliens, but animal-style creatures that are pretty prevalent in the TMNT world. So that's a nice shout out to them, and it gets people interested in TMNT, right? Because they end up in the same exact situation I was. I'm not a TMNT fan, I hear this reference, it's very clearly a reference to something, so I'm like, oh, what is that referencing? I Google it, and now all of a sudden I'm more interested in TMNT. So solid effort from NetherRealm. After playing Donatello for a little bit, I think I can say that he's probably my second favorite turtle, so I still very much like Leonardo, and I think NetherRealm did a really good job with his intro dialogues. He actually has my favorite intro, like the animation. Well, actually, Leonardo I still think has a better intro. Donatello might be my second one though, for sure. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Remember to vote on what character you would like to see. If you'd like to support me, subscribing is always appreciated. Helps me get to 15,000 subscribers, which is currently my objective. Liking the video is also super helpful, and if you're an extra level, if you're on another level of support, you can come check out my Patreon, which is linked in the description of every single one of my videos. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. My name has been Bilbzy, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.